In this video, I'm going to talk about 7 reasons why leaving your old 401k behind with your previous employer could make sense. Welcome back. This is episode 258. The predominant way that Americans save for retirement is through an employer-sponsored retirement plan, and most companies are offering what is commonly known as a 401k plan. And when you change jobs, you're then changing 401k or retirement plans. And you may be wondering, what should I do with my previous 401k plan? Last week, I discussed 5 reasons why it could make sense to roll over an old 401k to an IRA. Well, in this episode, I'm going to cover 7 reasons why rolling over your old 401k to an IRA may not be a good idea. Before I get into that, if you're over 50 and you want to learn more about planning your ideal retirement, then consider signing up for my on-demand retirement planning course. It's called Retirement Readiness On Demand and is available on my Retire with Ryan website. I will take you through step-by-step on how to create your own plan for retirement. We cover taxes, Social Security, Medicare, investments, insurance, estate planning, and much, much more. The best part is that you get to take the course at your own pace. To sign up, head over to retirewithryan.com, click on Courses, and then click on Retirement Readiness On Demand. Anytime you leave a job, you're leaving behind your retirement plan with that company. And when you leave that job, there are essentially 4 things that you could do with that old retirement plan. So very briefly, those options are: 1, you could cash in the retirement plan and pay tax on it. So you pay federal or state income tax and potentially a 10% penalty if you're younger than age 59 and a half. That's probably not the best idea, but that is an option. Option number 2, if you now have a new job and your new employer offers a retirement plan and they allow you to transfer in an old retirement plan, you could potentially transfer in or roll in your old retirement plan into that new employer-sponsored plan. Option number 3, which I talked about last week, is to move the money to an IRA. So definitely some things to consider there. And the last thing that you can do is many companies will allow you to leave the money in the current plan, so in the current 401k. And that's what I want to talk about this week. I want to talk about 7 reasons why it could make sense to potentially leave your old 401k behind with your previous employer. So reason number 1 is potentially lower fees. It's possible if you work for a large employer that the employer has done a good job of creating a robust 401k menu with great investment options and low costs. Predominantly, it probably would be in index funds. And if those fees are low, it could make sense to leave it in that 401k plan. I will say, however, that I discussed last week is thanks to competition, due to competition between the largest independent broker-dealers of Schwab, Fidelity, and even Vanguard, costs inside of an IRA, if you were to transfer that from a 401k to an IRA, are very low, and they can even be lower than a 401k plan. But it is important to just understand the fee component of any time you're considering moving outside of a retirement plan over to an IRA. So reason number 2 to leave your money behind is due to access to company stock tax advantage through something called net unrealized depreciation. I've talked about this before in past episodes. So how this works is that if you work for a company that is publicly traded and you own stock in that company inside of your 401k plan that you've owned for a long time, you could potentially have a tax savings by keeping that 401k in that company stock when you transfer it out to an IRA. So you'd have to fully roll over your 401k over to an IRA, all within the same tax year. And the savings that you would get is that the capital gain that you have on the stock, if you've made a lot of money on the stock versus what you've paid for it, that can be taxed as a long-term capital gain, which for many people will be lower than the ordinary income tax rates you would pay if you were to sell the stock and transfer the proceeds from the stock over as cash to an IRA. So in order to do this, to take advantage of net unrealized appreciation, NUA, you must be separated from the company, and you must also have a triggering event. So that triggering event can be that you're separated from the company, and you have to be age 59 and a half to avoid the 10% penalty on the cost basis portion of the net unrealized appreciation transaction. However, even if you're not yet 59 and a half, this could still make sense. So let me give you an example. I think it will be a little more clear. So let's just say we have Mary. Mary's 56, and she used to work for Raytheon, and now she's currently unemployed. She took an early buyout package from Raytheon and no longer works there. And inside her 401k is a value of $1.5 million. $1 million of that value is in Raytheon stock that she's owned for many years through multiple mergers that Raytheon has gone through with other companies. And she only paid $35,000 to buy that company's stock. So she has had a very great investment. She essentially invested $35,000 that's now worth $1 million. So if she were to do an NUA transaction this year, what would happen, as I said, the entire 401k would get rolled out. They would split apart the stock, that is the company managing the rollover, whoever's administering Raytheon's 401k plan. I think it's Empower. And so the $1 million of stock would get sent to a brokerage account that Mary would have to open somewhere. So let's say she opened an account with Charles Schwab. The $1 million of stock gets transferred electronically to Charles Schwab, and the rest of her account, the $500,000, gets rolled over to an IRA. So that $500,000 is not taxable. But the basis of the stock in the year that you do the net unrealized appreciation transaction, that $35,000 is taxable. So because Mary's not yet 59 and a half, a 10% penalty would apply on top of the taxes that she would pay. So that $35,000, her basis, would be subject to ordinary income. So that would be taxed based on her other income tax for that year. But if she's not yet 59 and a half, she'd owe a 10% penalty on that basis. However, 10% on $35,000 is only $3,500, so it's not a very large penalty. And additionally, now Mary's pulled that stock out of the 401k, she separated it. She could then access the gains in that stock at long-term capital gains rates without any penalty. So in this situation, it could make sense for Mary, even though she's not yet 59 and a half, to still roll over her money to an IRA, but she needs to be aware of this. So let's just say, however, that instead of Mary's basis being $35,000, it was $350,000. So she still has had a tremendous gain on Raytheon stock. But in my example, if she were to roll over this entire 401k and split out the stock through the net unrealized appreciation transaction this year, she would owe a 10% penalty, not on $35,000, but on $350,000. So now she'd owe a 10% penalty of $35,000. So now it could be a little more appropriate for Mary to wait until age 59 and a half to take advantage of net unrealized appreciation. So anytime you're considering doing a rollover and you have company stock in your 401k plan, you want to know what is your cost basis in that stock. Sometimes this is actually printed right on your statements that you get from your 401k provider, or you could find it online. Other times you have to call up your 401k provider and they can research this and tell you what that basis is. And if that basis is low, then it could make sense to keep the company stock and split it apart through this net unrealized appreciation transaction. But you want to understand what the potential taxes are in this transaction, and if you're not 59 and a half, what are the potential tax penalties of doing this? So that is one reason why you may want to leave your money behind until you're 59 and a half with an old 401k plan. So staying on that same vein of not yet being 59 and a half, if you find yourself separated from service from your previous employer between the age of 55 and 59 and a half, then you have the ability to access your 401k monies without a 10% penalty. If instead you didn't know this and you rolled all your money over to an IRA, if you want access to any of that money, between your current age and 59 and a half, there is a 10% penalty. IRAs do not have an exemption for being laid off or separated from service between age 55 and 59 and a half. With IRAs, the magic rule is generally 59 and a half. The only exemption to this is through certain reasons like to pay medical bills, to pay for education expenses, if you qualify for disability, or for a first-time home purchase up to $10,000. Any other reason that you're taking distributions from your IRA would be subject to a 10% penalty if you're doing it before age 59 and a half. The only other exception to this is something called Rule 72T, which the 10% penalty is waived, but you agree to take out distributions for at least 5 years or until you reach age 59 and a half. So this could put you in a potentially compromising position if, let's say, at age 58, you want to take money out of your IRA that you had rolled over from a 401k, and you only want to do it for a couple of years, but instead you have to do it for 5 years, and that could force you to pay unnecessary taxes on this money, even though you're getting this 10% penalty waived. So anytime you're leaving a company between 55 and 59 and a half, you want to consider maybe leaving some of your money behind in the 401k, potentially all of it, in case you need access to the money before age 59 and a half, if you don't have available other funds that you could use to subsidize your income or your lifestyle until age 59 and a half. So reason number 4 to potentially leave your money behind in an old 401k is kind of interesting, and this is the enhanced legal protection that you might be afforded inside of a 401k versus an IRA. So 401ks are, and all qualified retirement plans are governed by the ERISA provisions, which is the Employee Retirement Investment Security Act, I believe. I could have gotten that wrong. And what this says is that all qualified retirement plans, including 401k plans, have unlimited protection from creditor judgments due to bankruptcy. Creditors and judgments due to bankruptcy. This is a federal law. So anytime you're then moving your money outside of a 401k over to an IRA, you could potentially be giving up some of those protections. However, rollover IRAs, which is what you'd be doing if you move your money from a 401k to an IRA, you could set up a rollover IRA and move it over into that, have unlimited protection in the event of a bankruptcy, thanks to the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act of 2005. So anytime you're rolling over this money, you still have the same protection. Additionally, you have unlimited protection for SEP IRAs and simple IRAs. There is also federal protection for IRAs, and that would be non-rollover IRAs if they're contributory IRAs, money that you've contributed outside of your retirement plan. As of this year, it's $1.5 million in change. And that is also a result of the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act of 2005. And however, this limit is subject to change every 3 years. It changes based on changes to the Consumer Price Index. So the last change was in 2022. This is going to be changing sometime this year. So this affords citizens in all states protections thanks to the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act of 2005. However, some states also offer greater IRA protection against bankruptcy. So you would need to check with your home state to see what their bankruptcy laws are. And in my home state of Connecticut, IRAs are protected from creditors, including bankruptcy, up to an unlimited amount. However, keep in mind that there are reasons that your retirement assets could be attacked or could be used, and one is through a divorce, which is as part of a quadro order, which stands for a qualified domestic relations order. This could require that you pay out some of your money to an ex-spouse. Additionally, your state and or your federal government has the ability to recover incarceration costs or rights of a victim of a crime that you committed from your retirement accounts. So there isn't protection no matter what. There is protection for bankruptcy and for other judgments. However, there are certain reasons why your IRA assets could be relinquished. And though it's not required, anytime you do an IRA rollover, a transfer from a 401k or a qualified plan to an IRA, it's recommended that you open a rollover IRA with your financial institution rather than a contributory IRA to receive these monies. Now, if you don't do that, you still have bankruptcy protection on these assets if they originated in a qualified retirement plan. But it's probably a better idea for tracking purposes to have it go into a rollover IRA or possibly even segment it out between your contributory IRA. So that's reason number 4. Reason number 5 is the availability of stable value funds inside of your qualified retirement plan. So stable value funds are a type of investment that many 401k plans offer, and essentially they are like a money market fund that has a high interest rate that they pay. Usually there's a minimal interest rate that they guarantee. It might be 2.5% or 3%. So the interest rate can't ever go below that, and then the rate can adjust above that based on changes in interest rates. So it's possible that if your 401k offers this is a low risk way that you can invest your money and have it grow by a fixed rate every year. However, at the current moment, many money market funds that are available inside of 401ks, because many funds, 401k plans offer both a stable value and a money market, are paying higher interest rates than stable value funds. So in this current environment, it's really not the case, but if we were to see interest rates go down to very low rates again, it's possible that these stable value funds could be paying a higher rate than money market funds. However, that is not the case now, but it is something to consider. Reason number 6 to leave your money in your old 401k is the ability to take 401k loans. Many 401k plans allow for loans, and 401k plans allow you to borrow up to half of your 401k plan, up to a limit of $50,000 as a loan. So if you think that you might need a 401k loan and you check with your old 401k provider and they still allow you to take a loan, this could be a reason to leave that behind. However, not all 401k providers will allow you to take a loan if you no longer work for the company. Many times they will not allow this because usually 401k loans are paid back through payroll contributions. So therefore, if you're no longer working for the company, you're not collecting a paycheck, they don't have a mechanism for you to repay your 401k loan. Some providers will allow you to set up other payment methods like direct deposit or such, but you'll have to check with your 401k provider to see if that's the case. This could be a reason to maybe move your money over to a new 401k. If you now have a new 401k provider and you think you might want to take a loan from that 401k, this could be a reason to roll the money over to or transfer it over to your new 401k so that you can take out a loan. So reason number 7 to possibly leave your old 401k behind is if you are still working past the age of 73. So currently, once you reach 73 and you have any IRA account, any non-401k account, and your that money is in there, you have to start taking out required minimum distributions. This is a certain percentage of your retirement plan that you have to take out every year and pay tax on. So it starts now at age 73. It used to start at age 70 and a half, then it went to 72, and now it's at 73. So it starts out about a little below 4%, about 3.77% at when you reach 73, and then it increases a little bit each year. The only way to avoid this is if you're still working for a company and you're not more than I believe a 10% owner, and you have 401k monies in that company 401k plan, you can defer distributions from that 401k plan until you retire from the company. So if you're going to be working past 73, you could potentially leave your money in that 401k plan while you're working, and you could also move your money over to your current 401k and old 401k so that you could avoid those required minimum distributions. However, if you're no longer working for the company, then you would have to start taking out distributions. So it is something to check in with that company. So in conclusion, there's definitely reasons that you may want to leave your old 401k with your past employer in certain situations. So before you go doing a rollover, there's definitely things that you want to know. You want to understand, as I mentioned last episode, some of the reasons why a rollover could make sense and some of the reasons why a rollover might not make sense. And it's probably always best to consult with a fee-only financial advisor who can become familiar with your situation, who understands all these different variables and can help you decide what to do with the previous 401k plan. If you have a listener question that you want to have considered for a future episode, head over to retirewithryan.com and click on Ask a Question. Have a great week, and I look forward to talking with you next Tuesday. Take care.